All right, we are back live again. We are back live again, guys. You guys know who I am. Tank from IBC Gang YouTube channel. I'm joined by the one and only Lex from Strange Clan and Passage. Guys, I'm super giddy today, guys. I've been wanting to talk to Lex about what he's been doing for forever. Lex, how's your day going?
Good, good. Just another day in paradise, man.
Yeah, I didn't even notice earlier when we were talking. How do you are you a skateboard? Do you skateboard?
So I just went and got my oil change today. I drop it off, and I actually took. So I've got an electric skateboard too. I got my one wheel.
Yeah.
I've gotten a little bit lazy these days, and so I scooted over on that to the coffee shop. But yeah, man, I love skating. Grew
Awesome,
up.
awesome. By the way,
Yep.
yeah, my sons want one of those, and I'm like, that just looks really dangerous right now. Like maybe, maybe let's just
Yes.
get used to a
Yes.
regular skateboard before you get onto those electric skateboards, those one wheels. They zip by people so
Oh
quickly.
yeah. It
It's
was a prerequisite for my wife. I had to have a nice helmet before I could get one. So
a, I totally understandable. You got to protect that, man. You got to protect that.
yep.
So let's just jump into it, guys. If you guys don't know, well, actually, I should ask you. Do you want to? I could talk about either one of your projects. You have many
Yeah,
projects,
yeah,
but
yeah.
your primary one, Passage. Let's talk about Passage. If you
Cool.
don't mind, explain to everybody that is watching right now what Passage is and what you're building there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really interesting because I'm working on a kind of a vision statement for the team recently as it's been growing. Um, and so for me, first and foremost, it's interesting because Passage, in my mind, is a social platform, right? It started off as kind of these like niche experiences where really it's a virtual platform that allows people that creates a more immersive experience, but is also more accessible, right? Usually those two don't go together. Usually you have like, oh, it's more immersive. It's, Call of Duty, which means, you know, frankly, you've got a computer like this,
Yeah.
right? With glowy RGB nonsense. And that's how you have, if you want to play the really high end games, you have to have, your GPU, some kind of like nice computer setup, maybe something custom, fancy gaming laptop. But for us, it's the opposite. We want to offer that next level of immersion, that almost VR experience. And people have described Passage like VR, even though you don't need a headset, right? And even better, it's all happening in the browser. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no downloads. You're still getting an Unreal Engine experience and streamed from cloud compute, right? And we're building with Kosh so that everything is run on decentralized cloud compute. So the idea is the burden's not on locally on your hardware. You can run Passage on a phone, on an iPad, on an old laptop. Um, doesn't make a difference in terms of the quality because it's all being streamed, right? So the only factor is bandwidth. As long as you have a good internet connection, you can run any Passage experience.
How is building on Akash or with Akash? How's that been going?
Oh my gosh. I mean, Akash are like the epitome of builders, right? These are clever people. They have tapped into an infrastructure that's really just totally novel.
Mhm.
It has a lot of growing to do in terms of scale, but that's why we're working hand in hand with them so we can be a part of that, right? We want to create the demand that facilitates the growth and scale of Akash as a network.
Yeah, we've talked about it, kind of not to go totally off track here, but we've talked about Akash many times. I'm really bullish as an investor
Yeah.
about Akash, and I've said it to my community and the people that watch these videos many times that I view Akash as one of those things that's it's so innovative, but again, a little ahead of its time, if you want to
Yeah.
say that, as far as the use case being built around it. We talk about, I always take my investor stance because that's primarily what I am.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I look at things in that light. Like I use the example as a battery all the time. Like if you could have gone back in the day and invested in the modern variation of the battery, it really wasn't the technology of the battery that really, the battery wasn't that profitable right out the gate.
Right.
It was everything around that built. I used to have it right around it. I'm 40 something years old that I actually had one of those old school voice recorders that reporters used to use.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Walkmans and stuff like that. It's when all of those things developed around the battery that really brought the battery value to the forefront
Right.
and pushed that technology forward. I view Akash as in a very similar light. And so I've always wondered, especially when you first made those announcements about you guys partnering and building with Akash, I was going, I wonder how he feels knowing that he's technically one of the very first bigger projects, and I do consider you
Yep.
guys, if no matter how modest you want to be, a bigger product that could actually bring that kind of use case, that kind of light onto Akash. Like, does that make you feel a sense? I'm sure it does. Give you a sense
Oh,
of
it's
pride.
cool. Well, and what's interesting about what we're doing too is to be totally honest, we've had questions if Amazon can support what we're doing, because it's like not only is Akash ahead of its time in terms of like, placement with the technology, this kind of chicken or the egg, which comes first, right? The demand or the solution. But we're in a similar situation where it's like, we're moving ahead with this kind of streaming concept, knowing that in some ways the technology is going to have to grow for this to kind of reach its full potential, right? So even it's strange to say, but we've even had conversations about like, can Amazon support what we're doing in terms of the number of GPUs that we need? Because ultimately what happens is you need about 1 GPU for every 2 users who are on experience. So it's extremely demanding, but it's because we're absorbing all of that computational cost from the user, right? So the end user doesn't see that, right? We're taking on that load, right? And it's basically, experiences as a service, right? In a lot of ways. And the goal is we're trying to really facilitate the same thing for virtual experiences as we are for blockchain, that we take the load off of the user at the outset, but give them the opportunity to grow into it, right? If you love this experience, you can download Passage locally, right? You can run it locally. It's not that you can't, because ultimately some people do have, a Titan RTX sitting in their rig, right? Or they have, 4K ultra wide monitor that they want to use and get, max frame rates, max resolution.
I love my 3090. I love my 3090. I used to, I for just recently, actually, I was a very big ETH miner. I had many GPUs running and whatnot. And when those 30s came out, I was just like, I got
it. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I could geek out about hardware all day, but that's the thing is it's really interesting. I think in some ways, the gaming use case is not the best use case for Passage. It's really interesting. And I think there's a lot of ways that Strange Clan is going to be very unique. But gamers love their hardware for the most part, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're bringing in a new generation of not just gamers, because Passage isn't just about games, it's about virtual experiences as a whole. Really, some of the most profitable markets that we're entering are virtual offices. So the whole remote work use case that has really flourished, not because of, the pandemic, but really because of people's awareness of what's possible, right? It's nothing, in my mind, the flourishing of virtual collaboration has nothing to do with the fact that, some people were required to work from home. It's that once they did, you can't unsee that, right? People now see the potential. We've been working remotely. Our whole team has been working remotely for over 5 years now, right? And so, it's something where we saw the benefit of it a long time ago, where I can pluck the best talent from all across the country and collaborate in a way that's much more holistic and organic. But point being, remote work is a huge, huge opportunity, but also virtual events. And that's where we got our start, right? Doing events with Capitol Records, Amazon. We were doing events even before kind of the virtual era, helping to manage and build and plan events for Warner Brothers, Red Bull, Disney, Marvel. And that was what kind of like translated into building these virtual experiences, because we were always building the virtual side of actual physical executions, right? And helping to plan. We had all, these whole CGI layouts built out for people to pre-visualize the experience before they built, $10 million in execution. So, it's really been kind of this culmination of a long era of just building these experiences. And kind of get back to kind of the Akash question. It's really interesting. And a lot of it's faith, right? It's kind of faith that like, this is where the market's going.
Right.
And I think honestly, my favorite problems are the ones that don't have solutions, because that's when you're in a unique market.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
That's where you're creating something novel, is when like, well, the only solution is Akash, right? The only really real opportunity, so it's like, you're on the bleeding edge, you're on the wild frontier, but who do you want to be there with, right? And for me, it's like, I'm looking at Greg and I'm like, and Boz,
that guy,
like, these are the guys who I'm going to go, on the bleeding edge with.
Well, so, and you're also, you really you're bringing up a lot of different, because again, I say it all the time on my stream, so my viewers know this, but my wife and my wife's a doctor, we own medical practices and whatnot.
Wow.
On top of real estate and all these other ventures and faucets and whatnot. I'm an investor in all means of the word. But it's kind of funny, and we don't have to spend too much time on that, but I thought it was really, really interesting, because I was actually just talking to my wife about this and how it sounds weird, and I don't want to make it sound that way, but really, with what happened, and we can't say it because YouTube doesn't like it when I bring up certain words, but what happened with everybody 2 years ago, For you and Passage and, what you're building and what you guys, it was really kind of like a godsend with technology wise, with what you were going to be doing. You really, a lot of people, including us in our profession, on our medical practice, saw so much benefit, as well as teachers and everybody else, on how they can apply virtual meetings and virtual use cases on so many different, angles. Like it was really interesting to see that kind of take off. It's kind of, I was laughing while you were saying it, because I was going, we should have had this on Passage. We should have done all of this on Passage. And now look at us. We're sitting in this place. But
yeah, man, a bunch of virtual bums over here in this primitive construction.
No, so I absolutely love it. Again, one of the things I really like is when you were talking about even wondering if, all these bigger centralized services could actually work with you guys. I find what you're doing really interesting, because you're really expanding and manipulating the mold as far as what is socially popular right now, with, like, of course, I'm just going to call it out there, with the metaverse and with VR having to have like, if you go, like you said, you can just download it right now, experience it, and it's so much like a VR experience, but anybody can do this kind of thing. And I like that you're reworking it for the common person out there, not just the people that can buy this amount of, technology, the headset or whatever it is. Anyway, so go ahead.
And we talked about that same point in we've been doing demos like with the community recently, and pulling in, NFT holders and some kind of like key community members to just try it out. And we've actually been like doing daily demos twice a day with small groups. And we're building towards having a system where anyone can kind of go in and boot up a Passage world on demand, either by holding Passage NFTs or just by spending a little bit of Passage token, which, Lord willing, launching very soon. TM.
Super excited about that.
Yep. And so we were talking in this demo, and I just love, I pop in every now and then. It's actually Abby and Wes managing the demos primarily. But I pop in every now and then, because I just love, it's been a long time since I've really like facilitated the demos, and I love seeing people's like kind of like raw reaction. And we had one particular guest who was just, can see the potential, right? You can see immediately when people really connect with the technology. And again, it goes so far beyond like remote work is a really, a very investable application, right? Same with the virtual events. Again, these are the areas you've already been paid to build the platform. That's what funded kind of the initial build out of Passage, was doing these kind of large brand events, which were very niche and kind of unique in character. But now, as that grows, those are the opportunities going to fund the ecosystem. But then there's so many ways this can be used to reach under accessed areas, right? So people with limited job opportunities, education opportunities, because all you need is bandwidth, right? Which is becoming more and more accessible, whether it's through your local library or a 5G connection, or, you know what I mean? Like, bandwidth is becoming more and more prevalent as physical opportunities in certain areas are waning. So.
Right. No, yep. And that's kind of what I was alluding to with everything. And even my wife is a specialized doctor. We work more with newborn babies and whatnot. So we do a lot of, I'm going to get the community might be like, what are you talking about? But like tongue and lip ties and nursing mothers and stuff like that, which a lot of times now we are finding we do more of our consults and stuff like that remotely. Like we do it,
right.
in the comfort of their home, where the baby's more comfortable, the mother's more comfortable, whatnot. And it has really, really been a benefit in our practice. And we've grown tremendously with being able to provide. And then, this all just came about with what happened 2 years ago, and that push with, Zoom and whatnot and everything else. So yeah, like there's so many different ways that you can apply, not only for, what we do here in crypto and everybody's like gaming and, NFTs, but like there's so many different ways that you could approach and apply your use case and scale that, I'm so bullish on Passage. So bullish on Passage.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I totally agree. I think in a lot of ways, again, people have kind of these specific ideas of how it applies, but there's so much opportunity beyond that. And that's what's really exciting to me. It's this unique balance, because, ultimately, I believe that will never replace the fundamental physical interaction, how God made us to communicate primitively, right? Man to man, eye to eye, like being able to have kind of this personal connection, being able to hug each other, shake hands, whatever it may be. I'm a hugger personally.
Yeah.
But so for anybody's at Decentralization, you'll probably get a hug if I recognize you. But the idea is that, that you can't replace that. That's so fundamentally important. And yet we're able to extend that in a way, right? We can't recreate it, right? It is fundamentally important, but we can imitate that original creation by being able to make this more closely match that, right? And it's not that you're trying to replace it, it's you're trying to extend people's reach. There's a blessing that comes with communication, right? Whether it was Gutenberg inventing the printing press, which allowed us to distribute, the scriptures all across the world, right? Or whether it's, the iPhone that allows people to communicate. So it's like these tools are so important, right? And they don't replace, the physical word, eye to eye, having kind of a primitive human connection. But they allow us to do the best we can, right? And extend our reach. So it's a really interesting balance where we're trying to capture that physical opportunity, like capture the way that we communicate physically, being able to look around, having the sense of space. Even it's weird, like we're going to be supporting VR and things like that, and being able to have kind of like full body avatars in Passage rather than the video icons. But I think video actually, like we're looking for ways to preserve that, even with a VR headset, where potentially like your mouth movements or like facial movements could be mapped to a scan of your, just finding ways to preserve the facial integrity, the video communication, because that like eye contact, you put a headset on.
Yeah, that's what people emotionally connect with the most.
Right. Yeah. And there's so much subtlety there, right? Yeah. So as much as, I've got some Italian roots, I tend to speak with my hands. Like it's useful if you can have hand presence with a VR headset and VR controllers. But I think there's something more fundamental about that face-to-face. So again, we've been trying to capture what is kind of like the MVP, the minimum viable product, and just kind of like the bare essence of a Passage experience. And we've built this core that has so much opportunity to connect new pieces, right? Like adding VR control, VR support, with the infrastructure that we have using Unreal Engine, it's actually relatively trivial to add VR support. It's just where and how do we innovate on that to make sure it still maintains that personal element that you would get in the physical. But then for me, the long-term execution of Passage is this perfect blending of physical and virtual experiences, right? Where you don't replace a virtual experience. Actually, I want to buy physical locations all across the country and internationally to host Passage experiences, where we've built out these structures in a way to one, integrate better with the physical, right? Having like virtual doubles of physical locations, either existing locations or locations that we build where people can gather, and you can replicate that in a really unique way virtually, whether it's even replicating like the position of the real world guests for the virtual guests, or like there's more ways you can integrate when you have more control of the physical location and blend those two together so that people can still come and be together, right? But then you're able to translate that experience as closely as possible for a worldwide audience, right? And create that accessibility of education, of opportunity, of social interactions, of innovation, bringing more people together, right? And the more we can do that, the more I think we are a catalyst for further technological growth, innovation, in all sorts of industries.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I'm just gonna, it's because it's on my mind. I'm assuming, which sometimes gets me in trouble, but I'm assuming you're like myself, which is a man of faith and knows a bit about scripture and whatnot. But when you're going back there, whenever I look at things like Passage, things like Zoom, things such as what we're using right now, I really do think you were saying, it's speculation, all this stuff, but like, I really feel like the writing's on the wall, and it has been actually on the wall for years. And what I want to bring up, guys, is, if you guys don't know anything about the Tower of Babel, that basically goes back to, when they just scrambled up the means of communication so that people couldn't communicate with each other. And that is when things really fell apart, per scripture and per if you, I'm not trying to go that route, but if you guys know anything about that, that's really when things fell apart. And the ability to be able to, whether it be physically or virtually, communicate is key to our development as a society, as a civilization moving forward. And I know we have technologies that are advancing, which again, I love how you like clearly state that you're not trying to replace that go out and touch grass moment, go out there and physically hug people, but you're trying to
stop and smell the roses.
Or you're just trying to enhance the capabilities that we do have, or that is advancing as time goes on, into a means that is more beneficial for people to communicate more seamlessly, more easily.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to double back on it. I absolutely, again, one of the
Oh, I
biggest
love that.
reasons why I love Passage and what you guys are doing. I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer. Like
Yeah.
I said, I'm super old. I love all of this stuff. And I love the ability to be able to get into games, which is probably a good time to maybe pivot and go into Strange Clan in a second. But as far as like everything, like what we're doing right now, I'm so old. I don't know if you guys remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Total Recall, the original Total Recall. Back then, and even maybe before that, and it's another Arnold movie, actually, it's weird enough, but do you guys remember watching those movies where they would pop up on their watches or on the little screens on Total Recall, and they were talking to each other like we're doing right now? I remember my mind being blown back as a kid, telling my mom, why don't we have something like that? And her telling me, that's just the movie, son, and all this other, like, we're doing it right now like that. I woke up and
Yeah.
had coffee, and I could do it in my own house. This is amazing, and I can only imagine where your Passage is going to be, and you guys and everybody else in 5 years. Like 5 years
Yeah.
from now, it's going to be totally different. It's my
Well, and I love that example of the Tower of Babel, because the whole story kind of like illustrates something that we have expressed as being fundamentally important to everything that we're doing, which is the power of a community, right? The power of people collaborating. And we've talked about this in kind of like the value proposition of Strange Clan as a game. What you're saying when you build a play to own game where ownership is fundamentally important for the people participating is that there is value in the community itself, right? Where a people gather for a common cause, whether it's, being engaged in a story or an experience or a game, whatever it may be. There's a lot of those elements inside Strange Clan where it is a community experience. But when people gather, fundamentally, there's value there. And on a very simple level, you can see that when somebody enters the game, if there's just other people around, they could help explain it to them so they don't get lost, right? Like the human element from a very primitive level, people can lift each other up. But then on a much bigger picture scale, it's the people being there that gives it meaning, right? It's participation. And so there's something weirdly magical about that, about the value of a community coming together, and something inherently powerful in that from a particular example with Strange Clan. But then the broader example with Passage as a whole, right? It's all about connecting people in a more meaningful way and trying to more accurately represent the way that we communicate, right? Whether it's being able to see where somebody's looking versus, we're revamping both of the websites.
Okay?
We're revamping the Passage. We're almost we should be pushing the updated Passage website soon, which more accurately addresses kind of like where we're going with things. This is great. I'm happy to like hop through whatever. But
yeah. Sorry, I normally don't share screens, but I was like, I feel like I need to show people like what you're.
Oh, I love it.
About.
Yep, I love it. And just kind of wrap up that point. There's something fundamentally important about a group of people coming together for a common purpose, and it's more than just the sum of the parts, right? The whole is more than that. And there's something almost alchemical, right? Where like it's like, but how can it be more than the sum of the parts, right? It's like, no, there's something really special there that is apart from, that is beyond each individual person added together. There is a really important element there, which is why we have this fundamental mission of, facilitating communication, facilitating community, and the stories that unite community, right? The different purposes. And that's kind of been our motif with Strange Clan, is story and community, right? And those things, I think, permeate a lot of the things that we're doing. It's a bigger picture goal and part of the vision.
Right. So if you don't mind me asking, since we're here right now,
Please.
if you guys don't know, I was lucky enough to snag me up 3 original Town 1 straight. When that happened, I don't normally do this. I remember shout outs to DPR and a few other that are actually in the stream. We were sitting around just waiting, and I haven't done that on my computer for many projects.
That's awesome.
To be honest with you,
you were there for the auction?
Yeah, I was there for the Dutch. I was there for the auction.
Wow.
I was there.
That was special. That was a special experience.
And I'll be there for the second one as well. But yeah, it was a very special experience. I was able to capture 3 of them. I absolutely love mine. If you don't mind, tell people, how are things going? How like you said, you were doing changes and stuff like that. Like, how has the past couple of months since then to now? We've gone through so many things over those past couple of months. How's everything going for Strange Clans? What's changing? If you can tell us some things, what are we looking for in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some cool, just fun, unique things that are going to be popping out with Town 2. Originally, I'd actually been saying nothing's going to change. It would be very minimal changes, but you would just kind of like know the difference visually between Town 1 and Town 2. That's still true. But also the team has decided that we want to both pull some things out that will end up being exclusive to Town 1 and add some things in that'll end up being exclusive to Town 2. So they're both going to have their unique, there's some characters, classes that are not going to be in Town 2 that were in Town 1 and vice versa, right?
Cool.
It's still meant to be one cohesive collection. So when you look at the whole collection, there's going to be so many overlapping characteristics. But nonetheless, we wanted to include a few surprises. So there's that. We also have likely 2 new community characters that'll be included in the total 10K. All the community characters are part of the 10K collection. They're not separate. And this is something that was really important to us. Is I saw there are a lot of projects that, like, whether they've planned it out carefully or maybe just weren't thinking about it, have like multiple collections. And I think it's confusing to people.
It is. It is very confusing, to be honest.
And it's like, oh, this one's on, Stargaze, and this one is on, I'm totally blanking on the other.
Omniflix?
Yes, Omniflix.
I do it all the time, though.
I gotta finish this coffee, man. This is bad. But point being, and it's just kind of like, are they the same? Do I get the same benefits? Like, is this inflation? What's happening here, right? And so for us, it was really important that it's like, no, it's a 10K collection. That is the Genesis collection in entirety, right? If you get one of the community characters through a giveaway, through some type of community engagement, that is the same thing, right, as buying a Genesis character. That's why it's valuable. It's not valuable as kind of like, oh, it's an homage to Strange Planet. No. This is the 10K collection. So there will only ever be 10K Genesis. Some new things coming out with Town 2 and some things going away. And then, I mean, the big thing that we're moving forward with now is the Prologue experience, right? I mean, we have so much developing for the Chapter 1, the 3D experience. Well, our character team has just been doing phenomenal work. And if you've seen, so people who are in the Genesis Holders channel on Discord, which is exclusive to people holding NFTs, pardon the background noise.
I'm used to it. I'm so. I'm surprised mine hasn't.
This is pre-nap lunchtime. You get that like unique fiery combination of like, hey, I'm hungry and I'm tired.
Yeah.
And it's explosive. It's a good time. But point being, the Prologue experience is coming sooner than all of that, right? Like, so people have been able to see the 3D characters coming out and they're just beautiful. I mean, like the unique kind of combination we're going for of a 3D experience with fun stylistic elements that are like an homage to like a graphic novel 2D styles, kind of like Borderlands. But with the environments, we are going for more realism, but the characters kind of have this hint of stylization to them.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. They're fantastic. Again, our whole team is, this is what we grew up on, are the 3D constructs. We've been building in the 3D space for a long time. So 3D content production is in our blood at this point. So that's going along really nicely. But in the meantime, we also have part of our team dedicated towards building out the Prologue. So smart contracts for Prologue, the content for Prologue, which is more accessible because for one, it's going to be a 2D experience and the feature set is much, much more limited. That said, we're looking at about a 10-month timeline because we really pushed the scope like as far as we could. Initially, we had kind of like in mind something that would be in line with DeFi Kingdoms. And yet we kept pushing the envelope and like, this isn't a complete experience.
I'm so glad you guys did, though. I'm so glad you guys did.
Right. And because we wanted something that really was going to give you a taste of the experience you would expect from Strange Clan, something that gives you story, it gives you objectives, there's a fun community element to it. The goal is to make something that really, again, it's not the complete realization because that's what's going to be happening with Chapter 1, but it's meant to be something where people can engage with the story and quest and see the world, more of the world building throughout the time that they're waiting, right? Because this is a really unique dynamic where we don't want to be just like a Kickstarter where, yes, we recognize that we are building a AAA game, and so it has a AAA timeline. And there's an interesting process when you're talking about, it's like, okay, you get to be involved in 3 years of production. Well, that's not exciting, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to create really a new dynamic, a new construct for what that looks like, right? For what it looks like to bootstrap a game through a community, right? And if this works, I mean, if we can set this precedent, this is what we want Passage to do, is really to bootstrap, jumpstart tons and tons of indie projects, not just in the gaming space, but I'm looking at the film production space next. A lot of people know I've been talking about Arcane, and I can't stop talking about Arcane because I want to bring that level of animation production to indie teams. Like I want to be able to bootstrap the next Arcane and not have it be, who knows, $120 million production from, Riot Games who have been profiting on this IP for a decade or whatever, however long it's been.
Right. Well, I for one, being a holder and part of the community, and like I always tell everybody, I use the expression in the mud with everybody else in the trenches. Like I said, I respect and thank you for taking your time to do this. Right. I know a lot. It cannot be, and I'll admit it's not very exciting sometimes to be patient. But when you're patient, you actually, you really do get the. There's a reason why we say those pays. If you're patient, especially in crypto, not just for investing, usually you'll be rewarded much better than being impatient and rushing things out. And I just got to say, I've touched, probably not as near as some people have with NFT gaming or Blockfi gaming and stuff like that. But I have touched some games, and I really do think you guys are, like you said, pushing the envelope, bringing something fresh and new that's ever developing, which is very exciting in my from my point of view. You could rush to do something like Axie or something like that, but like from where I sit on this side of the camera and being a holder, I really do think that you, just like Passage, or especially with this game in Strange Clan, are laying yourselves out to not that that's the only thing you guys are trying to do, but capture market share or product market fit for BlockFi gaming or NFT gaming or whatever they want to, whatever the new fad is, right? Like what was it now? Like play to earn or play to own, whatever it is. You're really just laying it out there and setting the stones to be able to build across a very wide scope of possibilities. And I think I think that in itself is very, very exciting. So I know it seems boring, guys, but I'm telling you, I'm super excited. And I'm not just trying to show something right now just because Lex is on here. I'm super excited.
That's why it's so important that, like, as teams, we be transparent. And not just transparent in the sense of like, here's an update, but like letting people in on the nitty gritty on the inside, right? Actually, one of my favorite examples of content creation, so teams creating content, is Wormwood. So Wormwood is a gaming company. They build high-end wood products for like D&D gamers, board game, tabletop, whatever. And they're fine craftsmen. They do incredible work. But they also have a YouTube channel that has like great viewership because they're basically, it's behind the scenes of the team the whole time, right? And we're trying to emulate that in a lot of ways, kind of this Gary Vee style of social communication where people really get an inside scoop so that they don't get bored, right? Because they know you, they know what you're going through. And it's like the entertainment becomes you until it can be the product, right? It's like you are the product. I'll be the product in the meantime, right? And it's like, so we're actually hiring a content director to help produce more content, right? Whether it's like live footage of us, pulling footage from our team meetings, like being able to show more inside of what we're doing. And no promises as to what exactly that's going to look like. But my hope is that it is a accurate, raw, and entertaining slice of what we do every day, right? Being able to show people the kind of problems that we're dealing with until the point where they can be your problems because you get to play the game yourself.
I would gladly love to have those problems. And, I just got to say this as well. For my community knows this. I started IBC Gang YouTube channel. One, obviously love the Cosmos ecosystem. Want to promote it and whatnot. But I've made a commitment on this channel numerous times, and I will always, it's just, that's the way I am. It's the way I always will be, is to be fully transparent. So, I put out a lot of information that a lot of other people have messaged me, and I'm sure you get this as well. I just want to say, I totally respect and love the fact that you put yourself out there. You put your first and last name, you put your family pictures out there. I mean, I put stuff out there all the time. They're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, guys, it's the internet. First and foremost, they could find me if they want to. It's totally like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but like, I do also, for the sake of transparency, that if you want people, I've always believed, if you want people to fully commit to you, fully buy into what you're building, especially if you're being, I'm losing the word right now. I can't think of the word. If you're really trying to genuinely be building something for the people that people can genuinely, enjoy, you're going to have to, at a lot of different levels, be very transparent with yourself and what you're doing as a person. So I really respect the fact of how much you're putting yourself out there, how much you're going on Twitter Spaces and how much effort you're putting into it. I'm sure this new person that you're bringing along is going to be very beneficial for your own social. I know my wife sometimes is like, "Hey, look, we got to go and spend time off." And I'm like, "I gotta be on this. Yeah, I gotta be on this." But like, I fully respect that and thank you for that, initiative that you've taken upon yourself and the Passage team and for Strange Clan to be so transparent. So thank you.
Well, here's the thing too. I mean, this is kind of the concept of the vivid vision from, I'm going to totally forget, this guy, author who wrote a bunch of really incredible business books, Vivid Vision, Double Double. This Errol tuned me into this guy. And the whole idea is they write an explicit vision of what they see their company looking like in 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And they put it out there, they put it, on their website, it's in their office. And so when people are coming in, they see it. And a lot of times he's seen examples where it comes to fruition because they put it out there, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody saw it and was like, oh, you want to do that? Like, I can connect you with this person, whatever. And so for me, it's like, as much as this is, kind of like to serve the community, it's also to serve us, because the more we put ourselves out there and people see the problems that we're facing, like, oh, like, they're facing production issues because, they just lost this guy, or, they're missing. It's like, I've got an idea for that, right? I've got an idea for something that would help that workflow, or, hey, like, I would like to be a part of that team. I could fit this role, because a lot of times I can see, if I can see the people in front of me, I can see who can fit in which part of the puzzle for this kind of ecosystem that we're building and how it gets built, how it gets created. But oftentimes it's the people who belong in that spot who are going to see it better than I am. Yeah. So it's so important to constantly be putting yourself out there and painting the vision so that it can come to fruition, yeah. Right? So that the people can insert themselves into it where they belong and create an opportunity. And that's why I really want to be accessible. It's so funny. I think a lot of the ways that I kind of catapulted our collaboration in the Cosmos ecosystem was just constant communication, right? Like constantly like finding ways to connect to this person who then would connect me to that person. And it's like, just kind of working your way through a network in a genuine way that says like, hey, I'm open. All I want to do is have a conversation, right? I'm just trying to talk. And once you can talk to people and kind of like lay out the picture, you really can figure out like, people can start pointing you in the right direction. So I don't know. Again, I believe in this kind of like reckless transparency, this kind of like reckless communication, where it's like, of course, we got to be careful in terms of if, for one, everybody knows that I'm the loose lips that sink the ship in terms of alpha, yeah. But I've been reformed in a lot of my ways. But at the same time, so we want to keep things suspenseful. We want to create surprise, but at the same time, you gotta share the struggle, right? Share the struggle, share the process, so that people can be a part of it.
Yeah, totally agree. Matter of fact, I was actually in one of the Twitter spaces that you recently had with other NFT builders and project leads or whatnot, or owners, I think over the weekend. And I remember listening to, their feedback, and I kind of was like in my head, I was doing yard work at the time outside. And I remember in my head thinking, I bet right now he's just kind of grinning. Cause as, like I said, as a business owner, I do the same thing. I'm always putting it out there, and I've said it many times on my stream. I believe you get what you put out there in life. So when you put it out there, like you said, you definitely do. Not all the time, but eventually you're going to get the answer from life itself or from the galaxy itself in its own little way. And, it's up to you to pick up that answer and do what you will with it. But let me ask you this, since we have about 15, 20 more minutes left, to be honest with you. I would love to get your take on, I wanted to ask you earlier, but since we're, for the sake of time, why you decided to build in Cosmos, but I feel like everybody already knows, why everybody would want to build in Cosmos. Foregoing that question for the next though, how do you feel about the current environment of the Cosmos ecosystem? Where do you see our ecosystem going with its future, with its current stance and its future developments that are coming in the next couple of months? How do you feel about everything that's happening right now? And where do you see Cosmos going in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is really interesting because I think sort of the innate power of Cosmos is the true decentralization, that you're not reliant on one chain, that you're not reliant on one community leader. And frankly, there's certain disappointments in, there's everyone has disappointments with different parts of the leadership, right? Whether it's people leading this chain or this project, that project, this foundation or that way. It's like the beauty is we don't need them. Right. Mm-hmm. The beauty is that, we can continue to build independently. that we're not reliant. Now, at the same time, there is this fundamental community collaboration. Like there's a lot of collaboration that happens between teams in Cosmos because we are looking for interoperability, right? And so it's the expectation that we will find ways to collaborate and build on top of each other. But that decentralization that is kind of inherently beneficial is also crippling because things move slower, right? When you don't have centralization, when you don't have centralized leadership, how do you paint the vision, right? Who's painting the vision? And you have all these different visions. And so it makes it harder sometimes for people to collaborate when they don't have somebody above them dictating what's the path, what's the course, right? Because it takes longer to figure out what the course is. So I think the next generation of Cosmos is going to be really a rising up of new leaders in the space. People can kind of like paint the picture of where it's going. And I think a lot of this is going to be connected to who can tell the Cosmos story, right? So it's going to be content creators who really define where it's going. I mean, look at what CryptoCito is doing with Cosmoverse, right? With the convention. He is in a lot of ways facilitating the next generation of voices that will define what Cosmos is, right? And so I think there's going to be the people who are best at communicating, best at unifying people's vision, who are going to define the next generation of Cosmos. And it's interesting going from, I think we're going to have, right now you have a really savvy builders in the space. And that's why it's been so incredible to build here because of the people who just have this rich, but that said, it's also in some ways harder to hire people to work in Cosmos because you've got to be smart to work in Cosmos.
There's a bar.
Right. Yeah. You know, we've been pulling Rust Smart contract developers from the Solana ecosystem, Cosmwasm developers from the Taro ecosystem.
How's that? I don't mean to cut you off. How's that been? Has it been like, my wife's a dentist, but is it like pulling teeth from Solana, or do these developers seem to kind of, take a glance at what's happening in the Cosmos and go, oh, wait, hold on. This is be much better to build here.
I mean, by the grace of God, we had one developer who literally just came to us and was like, hey, I would love to build on your project, and has literally been an absolute dream. He picked up Cosmwasm so fast. Rust contract developer, really good in terms of blockchain thinking, in terms of, DeFi, smart contract development. So he's been an absolute dream. It is really hard finding somebody who could be like a blockchain lead. And that's still what we're looking for. So, eyes on you guys. If you've got if anyone has, someone who they'd recommend who is not happy with your current project, hey, we'll snipe people. I'm cool with that. But we'll treat you guys right. Or people who are, because having people who in such a new space and in such a novel space like Cosmos, people with experience, I mean, that's hard. It's very few and far between. And so most likely you're raising those people up. You're creating a generation of those people. So finding people who can be leading, core blockchain development from the outset on Golang, it's kind of niche. So there's incredible things because it's such great technology, but it is a little bit slower to amass a team. And so we've been kind of like, and we're doing lots of collaborations with other teams. I mean, I've got a meeting with Notional this week. We were working with Vitwit. We've worked with Confio.
Shout out to Notional, by the way. Shout out to Notional. We were just talking about Notional.
Jacob was my man.
Guys, Jacob, I'm telling you guys, we had this conversation just a while ago. I can't give you guys financial advice. I just literally on our live stream I just redelegated all of my Atom, and I'm already with Juno and a lot of other things supporting them, guys. They run bare metal hardware themselves out of their physical location. He contributes a lot to our ecosystem. Shout outs to Notional. Again, I love some of these other validators as well, but just want to give that shout out. Thank you.
And in terms of that spirit of over communication, I mean, I think some people, if there's any fault you could find with Jacob, it's that he over communicates, but he's so ready to admit, like, I was wrong there, right?
Exactly.
Like, cool, let's move on. Like, better to over communicate, better to have that transparency. And it's like, hey, like, is something bad going on here? Like, is this an error? Is this a bad? Oh, we're good. We're good. Cool. Like, call it out, right? And so, those guys are absolutely incredible. But we've been collaborating with these other teams in different areas of our execution as we've been building up more of our internal resources. And now, again, we've been blessed to find some really incredible talent, but it's a slow process, right? And so we're trying to grow in a sustainable way, which means really bringing on the best people who can kind of operate at peak capacity in this space, which does take time. So that's been really cool, but it is a journey for sure.
Let me ask you to kind of close this up. Is there any, I know, and you don't have to because you've reformed now. I don't want you to be too loose-lipped about things. Is there anything that you can tell the community about any of the NFT projects that I know there's tons, guys. We'll be talking about Strange Clan, but if you guys don't know, our favorite meme, our first meme token, has been working with Passage. They've been working to get into there with Hua. We also have, I think, and I don't know what's going on with that, but I was really excited for the Neta NFT. Is there anything? Is that still on the back burner or working? Or
so we're working directly with some representatives from the Chihuahua community to build out Chihuahuaverse, right? To build out this Passage experience for the Chihuahua community. A lot of that stuff is still in development, but we're seeing weekly updates, and basically we're looking towards NFT launches for access to the Chihuahua universe on Passage. As we have more material to present, basically. So the goal is that we can kind of show people when we launch an NFT collection for this metaverse, we can show people this is how it's going to be used, right? This is the application, right? Really showing people utility on this meme coin.
I think I just recently saw something on Twitter and I was like, oh, what is this? What are they doing here? Right. But yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah. So we're going through the whole concepting phase with them. And this is something where, again, like we are implementing real hardcore AAA production processes on these Passage worlds that we're building, whether it's with Chihuahua or Boomyverse or Runic Arcanum. Like there's a lot of worlds that we're building with. Blockhouse is a big one. We're going to be doing the Rap as a Martial Art event. And there's so many big things happening. And it's tough because it takes time, right? Yeah. Because we're trying to implement a reliable process on these things. And that's where it's kind of like, again, we're trying to bring our production experience into kind of this really novel space where people expect stuff to be turned around overnight, right? And this is where we're trying to kind of like help set people's expectations, but also creating a fun, enjoyable experience in the meantime, right? Bringing people into the process and not making it kind of this, unbearable, we're just sitting tight until the next Kickstarter update.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I got to run. I really did enjoy it. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know you have little ones like myself. They're actually downstairs looking at the screen. I'm not parent. I'm sorry. You got to do what you got to do when they're on the summertime, guys. They're 6 and we're going to be soon 6 and 8. And like, I'm just like, here, have my phone. I got to go for a second.
Dude, I got 6, 4, and 2. So I feel you, man.
You got 3. I don't know how you're doing it.
Yep.
I go
by the grace of God.
But yeah, that's how you're doing it for sure. Lex, thank you very much. Hopefully we can have you on the stream again here soon. Guys, don't forget, I will drop links down in this video, in the chat down below for you guys to follow Passage, Strange Clan, and Lex. Do yourself a favor. Do that, guys. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe. With that being said, we're going to get out of here. Peace.
Peace.